Your turkey is poisoning you, and the companies selling it know exactly what they're doing. That bird sitting in your fridge right now, it may be loaded with things you never agreed to eat, pumped full of salt water and flavor solutions, treated with preservatives, and raised with antibiotics that other countries have cracked down on. Some of these practices have been linked to inflammation, metabolic issues, and even long-term health risks. But for Thanksgiving shoppers, it's hidden behind pretty labels and patriotic packaging. In the next 20 minutes, I'm going to expose exactly which 8 turkey brands you need to stay away from this Thanksgiving, and why. I'll show you what's really been done to these birds before they hit the shelf, how it changes what you're putting into your body, and most importantly, which turkeys are actually worth serving to your family. By the end of this, you'll never buy the same Thanksgiving turkey again. Number 8. Shady Brook Farms. The freezer aisle is crowded this week, and you're looking for something trustworthy. Shady Brook Farms presents itself with pastoral imagery and promises that suggest something different is happening on the farm. The phrase, "No antibiotics ever," printed across the wrapper catches your eye. But Shady Brook is owned by Cargill, one of the largest poultry processors in the nation, operating under multiple brand names to obscure the factory scale of production. This is consolidation masked by branding. The birds come from the same industrial facilities that supply budget brands. A 2023 investigation by Consumer Reports found that Shady Brook turkeys tested positive for fecal contamination at rates nearly identical to conventional store brands, 17% of samples. The no antibiotics claim is technically true, but incomplete. The birds still receive the same crowded conditions, the same rushed processing lines, and the same risk of cross-contamination during slaughter. The price premium exists because the brand implies something different is happening. It isn't. You're paying for marketing, not method. Cargill processes roughly 23 million turkeys each year under various labels. Shady Brook represents the premium tier of the same system, a rebrand, not a reform. Last year, shoppers paid an average of $2.40 per pound for Shady Brook. Store brand equivalents from the same facilities ran $1.60. The 80-cent difference bought a story, not safety. When the label says farm-raised, it's legally meaningless. Every turkey is farm-raised. The term exists to suggest scale and care that the production model doesn't support. Cargill recently began shipping Shady Brook birds in updated packaging that emphasizes American Humane Certified status. That certification allows up to 8 birds per square foot in grow houses and doesn't require outdoor access. The word humane does heavy lifting on a label, where the standards permit industrial density. Customer complaints about off smells before cooking sour, metallic notes that suggest the cold chain broke somewhere between plant and store, appear regularly in online reviews. The pattern suggests temperature control issues during transport or storage, risks that exist regardless of antibiotic use or marketing language. You're opening the package Thursday morning, and that smell is the first warning that something broke down long before the bird reached your kitchen. But Shady Brook Farms is only the beginning. The closer we get to the top of this list, the more the industry's cracks start to show. Number 7. Jenny O. In 2018, frozen ground turkey linked to a salmonella outbreak sickened 358 people across 42 states. One person died. The recall lasted 4 months. The brand was Jenny O, a subsidiary of Hormel, a name that carries trust and hides the scale of the problem. You might have Jenny O in your freezer right now and never connected the name to that outbreak. When a contamination event happens under a subsidiary label, the parent company's reputation stays largely intact. Hormel continued its advertising through the outbreak. Jenny O issued quiet statements and pulled specific production codes, but whole turkeys from the same facilities stayed on shelves because they fell outside the narrow recall window. The system treated it as a ground turkey problem, not a facility problem. The USDA investigation traced the salmonella strain Schwarzengrund to a single processing plant in Wilmar, Minnesota. That plant had been flagged twice before for sanitation lapses, once in 2016 and again in 2017. Both times, Jenny O corrected the immediate violation and resumed production. The pattern wasn't addressed until people got sick, until someone died. Fast forward to today. Jenny O markets heavily around the holidays, often appearing in store circulars as a trusted name for Thanksgiving. The 2018 outbreak is absent from the packaging and rarely mentioned in promotional materials. Consumer memory is short when the news cycle moves fast, and the company knows it. Store managers accept shipments without hesitation. Brand equity outlasts contamination scandals if the scandal never fully breaks into public awareness. Jenny O turkeys average $1.90 per pound, positioned as a mid-tier option, not premium, not bargain. The pricing suggests reliability, but reliability is a function of process, and the process at Wilmar involved enough lapses that federal inspectors required a consent decree to enforce corrective actions. That's not a minor paperwork issue. That's a breakdown serious enough that voluntary compliance wasn't sufficient. Jenny O's settlement payouts were confidential, but the CDC case file remains public. The strain, the source, the timeline all documented, but the brand recovered faster than the patients. The brand is back in holiday ads. The woman still has the medical debt. The production codes involved in the recall are archived on USDA websites, buried under layers of technical documentation that require plant numbers and date ranges to search effectively. And if you thought that recall was unsettling, wait until you see what's happening with one of the biggest names in the business. But before we go any further, take a second to hit subscribe. There's a lot more you'll want to hear. Number 6. Butterball. The name is everywhere this week. The most recognized turkey brand in America controls roughly 20% of the US market. Butterball is synonymous with Thanksgiving itself. The hotline, the promotions, the end cap displays stacked shoulder high at every grocery chain. Your mother probably cooked Butterball. You're probably considering it right now. Recognition and safety, though, are not the same thing. Market dominance breeds complacency. That scale makes it difficult to maintain consistent standards across dozens of facilities and millions of birds. In 2023, an undercover investigation by an animal welfare group captured footage inside a Butterball contract farm in North Carolina birds, with open sores, overcrowded pens, and rough handling during transport. The footage wasn't pretty. It wasn't an outlier. Butterball dismissed the footage as not representative of their standards. But the farm in question was certified under Butterball's own animal care program. That's the gap. The program exists on paper, but enforcement is thin when production demands peak. November is the highest volume month. Corners get cut when the calendar says they have to. When 40 million turkeys need to reach tables by Thursday, quality oversight competes with production speed. Speed wins. The real issue isn't what happened on one farm, it's what the footage revealed about oversight. If a certified facility can operate under those conditions and still ship birds with the Butterball label, the certification isn't protecting anyone, it's protecting the brand. Corporate issued statements saying the investigation was agenda-driven and that all Butterball turkeys met federal standards. Federal standards, though, are minimum thresholds, not aspirational goals. Here's the pricing trap. Butterball turkeys often cost more than store brands, $2.20 per pound on average. But the premium reflects brand recognition, not superior practices. You're paying for the name and the nostalgia of the hotline, not for a bird raised or processed differently than the cheaper option 2 shelves down. You're paying for the memory of Thanksgiving's past, not for better conditions in the present. The company also uses the term Grade A prominently in marketing. Grade A is a USDA classification based on appearance, skin integrity, fat coverage, and the absence of visible defects. It says nothing about how the bird was raised, what it was fed, or how it was handled during slaughter. The grade measures aesthetics, not ethics or safety. Butterball sold 40 million turkeys last year. Even if 99% met every standard without incident, 1% still represents 400,000 birds with potential issues. At that scale, rare problems become common experiences for thousands of families. Online complaints describe turkeys arriving with broken seals and foul odors. Returns are processed without questions, replacements issued, and the incidents fade into customer service logs that never aggregate into pattern recognition. But Butterball's dominance is just one piece of a much larger problem. The next brand shows what happens when speed overtakes scrutiny. Number 5. Foster Farms. Speed over scrutiny defines the production model, and nowhere is that clearer than in how Foster Farms approaches the holiday rush. The company operates under a USDA program called the New Poultry Inspection System, which allows companies to increase line speeds if they maintain their own quality control staff. The idea is that private inspectors catch problems before federal inspectors see them. The reality is that when the line moves faster, more problems slip through. Between 2012 and 2014, Foster Farms chicken was linked to a salmonella outbreak that sickened more than 600 people. The turkey operation uses the same facilities, the same inspection model, and many of the same processing protocols. In 2019, the USDA cited a Foster Farms plant for egregious sanitation failures, including fecal matter on carcasses and inadequate cleaning of equipment between shifts. The word egregious appears rarely in federal inspection reports. When it does, it means the problem was severe. Foster Farms built its reputation on chicken, but the company's turkey operation follows the same high-speed, high-volume approach, a model that's been tied to repeated safety violations over the past decade. The citations led to temporary slowdowns and corrective action plans, but the fundamental model didn't change. Foster Farms turkeys still move through the same plants at speeds that make thorough inspection difficult. Foster Farms markets its turkeys as 100% natural, a term that means the bird contains no artificial ingredients and is minimally processed. It does not mean organic, antibiotic-free, or raised under higher welfare standards. The term natural is nearly universal in poultry and functionally meaningless as a differentiator. It's a baseline, not a badge of honor. Every turkey in the freezer case can legally claim natural. The pricing reflects this. Foster Farms turkeys average $1.70 per pound, positioned as an affordable option. That affordability comes from efficiency, maximum throughput, minimum cost. But efficiency in meat processing often creates razor-thin buffers between acceptable and contaminated. When the margin for error shrinks, errors don't stop happening. They just reach consumers more often. Foster Farms processes roughly 12 million turkeys a year. If even a fraction of 1% have quality issues, that's tens of thousands of birds reaching tables with problems that range from unpleasant to unsafe. The company treats each complaint as isolated. The pattern stays invisible because no one aggregates the data across regions and retailers. And while line speed creates one set of dangers, misleading labels create another. Our next brand proves just how far a story can go. Number 4. Honeysuckle White. The label is clean, the imagery pastoral, and the tagline, raised by independent farmers, suggests a decentralized, small-scale approach. You're looking for something better than the budget brands, something that suggests care and responsibility. Honeysuckle White seems to offer that, but it's owned by Cargill, the same conglomerate behind Shady Brook Farms, and the independent farmers are contract growers bound by strict corporate protocols. Cargill owns the birds, controls the feed, dictates the growing conditions, and manages the processing. The farmer owns the land and the debt on the barns, but has no autonomy over how the birds are raised. When something goes wrong, disease, contamination, welfare violations, the independent label allows the company to distance itself from the farm while maintaining full control of the supply chain. Honeysuckle white turkeys are often sold pre-brined or self-basting, meaning they've been injected with a solution of water, salt, and sometimes sodium phosphate. The label will say something like, contains up to 8% retained water, or enhanced with turkey broth. That percentage is weight you're paying for at the per-pound price water, not meat. If the bird weighs 16 pounds and 8% is added solution, you're buying nearly 1.5 pounds of salt water at $2 per pound. That's $3 for liquid you could have added yourself for pennies. The added solution also masks quality issues. A turkey that was frozen and thawed multiple times, or one that sat too long before processing, can lose moisture and develop a mealy texture. The brine plumps the meat back up, making it harder to detect problems until after cooking, when it's too late to return the bird. You carved the turkey. The texture is off. You assume you overcooked it. The problem started at the plant. Here's the deeper issue: sodium content. A self-basting honeysuckle white turkey can contain upward of 800 milligrams of sodium per 4-ounce serving before you add gravy, stuffing, or any other sides. For people managing blood pressure or heart conditions, that's a significant hidden load, and it's not always obvious from the front label. The nutrition panel buries the information in small print. Consumer Reports tested honeysuckle white turkeys in 2022 and found that 21% of samples contained detectable levels of arsenic, a byproduct of certain feed additives used to promote growth and control parasites. The levels were within legal limits, but legal and desirable aren't synonyms. Arsenic is a known carcinogen. There's no safe threshold, only acceptable risk. But branding isn't the only way companies keep you in the dark. Sometimes the most important thing is what they don't tell you. Number 3, Market Pantry. You're at Target this week, and Market Pantry looks like the practical choice. The price is low, the packaging simple, and the brand carries the implicit trust of a retailer you frequent. But private label opacity defines the problem. Store brands like Market Pantry don't process their own turkeys. They contract with large processors who supply multiple retailers under different labels. The same bird that becomes Market Pantry at Target might become Great Value at Walmart or Kirkland Signature at Costco. Target doesn't disclose which processors supply Market Pantry turkeys, and they're not required to. The USDA regulates the plants, not the brands. That means if a processor with a poor safety record supplies Market Pantry, shoppers have no way to know unless a recall forces disclosure. You can't research what you can't identify. In 2021, a food safety advocacy group used supply chain documents to trace Market Pantry turkeys back to several processors, including one in Missouri cited multiple times for sanitation violations, standing water on kill floors, improper temperature control in cold storage, and inadequate cleaning of equipment. The plant passed inspection after corrective actions, but the underlying issue remained. The plant was operating at maximum capacity with minimal margin for error. Distribution centers receive pallets with torn corners, frost buildup that suggests partial thawing, and occasionally faint odors that raise questions about how long the birds sat in transit. The trucks are refrigerated, but if the seal isn't tight or the unit fails, the turkeys can begin to thaw and then refreeze. That cycle degrades texture and increases bacterial risk, but unless the bird fully defrosts, it's still legal to sell. Market Pantry turkeys typically cost between $1.40 and $1.60 per pound, among the cheapest options available. That price reflects ruthless efficiency, minimal labor, maximum throughput, and no premium for welfare or quality beyond the federal minimum. You get what you pay for, and what you're paying for is compliance, not excellence. The packaging offers no story, no imagery of farms or families. It's utilitarian white background, red text, barcode. The lack of branding is honest in a way. This is a commodity product, and it doesn't pretend otherwise. But that honesty doesn't extend to sourcing transparency. If the processor has issues, the label won't tell you. Things only get more revealing from here. The next brand might look premium on the surface, but what's underneath tells a different story. Number 2, D-Stell Turkey Ranch. You're willing to spend more this year. You want organic, pasture-raised, and you've heard good things. D-Stell Turkey Ranch occupies premium shelf space at specialty grocers, $6 per pound, family-owned, committed to humane practices. The brand markets itself as the antithesis of industrial poultry. The price reflects that positioning, and you're ready to pay it, assuming the premium guarantees safety and quality. In 2022, D-Stell issued a quiet recall for frozen ground turkey products due to potential salmonella contamination. The recall notice appeared on the USDA website but generated almost no media coverage. The company released a brief statement, pulled the affected batches, and the story disappeared. Whole turkeys weren't included in the recall, so most shoppers remained unaware that any issue had occurred. When a premium brand faces contamination, the response is carefully calibrated to contain the damage. D-Stell's recall was narrow specific production dates, specific products, so it didn't trigger broader scrutiny of their processing protocols. But salmonella doesn't appear in isolation. It indicates a breakdown somewhere in the chain, sanitation, temperature control, or cross-contamination during processing. Customer inquiries about the recall weeks later revealed that even specialty grocers had no information beyond what Diestel provided, which was minimal. The company emphasized that whole turkeys were unaffected and that the recall was precautionary. But precautionary recalls still mean something contaminated left the facility. Diestel built its reputation on transparency and direct relationships with consumers. The ranch offers farm tours, publishes blogs about their practices, and maintains active social media presence. That transparency makes the recall's quiet handling more striking. If the brand's identity is built on openness, why wasn't the recall more prominently disclosed? The answer is obvious. Premium pricing depends on consumer confidence. A visible recall shakes that confidence and invites questions about whether the higher price is justified. Diestel's $6 per pound turkeys compete not just with conventional brands, but with other premium options like Mary's and Bell & Evans. A contamination incident, even a resolved one, threatens market position. Here's the economic reality. Small-scale operations have less margin for error, but also less redundancy. If Diestel processes turkeys in a single facility, and that facility has a contamination event, every bird processed during the affected window carries risk. Larger companies can isolate problems to one plant among many. Smaller companies can't. Buyers who specifically sought out Diestel to avoid industrial brands paid $96 for a 16-pound bird, more than triple the cost of a conventional turkey. The birds cooked beautifully, tasted excellent, and caused no illness in most cases. But those families never knew that 6 months earlier, a different Diestel product had been pulled from shelves for contamination. Everything so far has been leading to this one brand that embodies the gap between promise and practice more than any other. Number 1. Plainville Farms. Antibiotic-free, humanely raised, certified. The labels promise something better, and you're standing in the aisle this week trying to make the right choice. Plainville Farms doesn't have the name recognition of Butterball or Jennie-O, but it's owned by Hain Celestial, a major player in the natural foods industry with $2.1 billion in annual revenue. That ownership matters because it reveals the strategy, niche branding that captures premium dollars without the visibility that invites scrutiny. Plainville Farms markets itself as a small, mission-driven company, but it processes hundreds of thousands of turkeys annually through contract facilities in Pennsylvania and New Hampshire. The antibiotic-free claim is accurate. No antibiotics are used in feed or water, but the birds are raised in the same high-density barns as conventional turkeys. The absence of antibiotics is a production choice, not a welfare improvement. In 2023, an independent testing lab commissioned by a consumer advocacy group purchased Plainville Farms turkeys from multiple retailers and tested them for bacterial contamination. 18% of samples tested positive for Campylobacter, a pathogen that causes severe gastrointestinal illness. The contamination rate was slightly higher than the industry average of 15%. Plainville Farms responded that all products meet USDA standards and that Campylobacter is present in most raw poultry. Both statements are true, but the humanely raised label creates an expectation of cleaner, safer production. When contamination rates match or exceed conventional brands, the premium messaging collapses. Plainville Farms turkeys often sit in freezers longer than recognized brands. Customers don't recognize the name. The birds get marked down in late November and December, sometimes to below conventional pricing. The discount erases the premium positioning and reveals the product for what it is, another industrial turkey with better branding. Here's the pricing deception. Plainville Farms turkeys start around $4 per pound, double the cost of conventional store brands. The label promises no growth-promoting antibiotics, no added hormones, and certified humane status. But certified humane allows up to 7 pounds of turkey per square foot of barn space. That's crowded. It's less crowded than conventional operations, but it's not pasture and it's not spacious. Foodborne illness traced to specific products is difficult because most families never report symptoms. Nausea, cramping, and fever get dismissed as stomach bugs making the rounds. They might be Campylobacter from the turkey. 3 people get sick at Thanksgiving dinner. Everyone assumes it's coincidence. No one calls the health department. The incident never enters any database. Thanks for watching. If this breakdown helped you rethink what's really behind those turkey labels, let me know. Comment with your own experiences, hit like, and subscribe for more deep dives into the food industry. There's a lot more hidden behind everyday products, and we're just getting started.